The rise and fall of island species speaks about how a new island can cease to life and how it cease to exist, like how the life acts in it. The important thing here is about this to know the definition of biography. Biography is the study of geographical distributions of plant and animal. Biography is the study of the geographical distribution of plants and animals. So it's study how the plants and animals are distributed in an area. The other thing, the whole of it speaks about how colonization happened and how a species or place ceases to exist or the life ends in it. So for me, the only thing that's important is the definition of biography. You should know that it's the study of geographical distribution of plants and animals. After that, we come to ecology of organisms. Here, you can see in the title, it is ecology of organisms. If you remember, we said that ecology is the study of environment, okay? The study of environment. So we are going to study the environment of the organisms, or that place they live or they have, okay? The first thing is this in this section is biotic and abiotic factors. Biotic and abiotic factor. Biotic means something that's living. Abiotic means non-living. Okay, factors of factors. So, biotic factor, anything that's living and affect organisms. Abiotic factor, anything that's non-living and affects organisms. Let's take the definition. The living components of the environment are called biotic factors. Okay, biotic factors include all of the living things that affect organisms. Okay, can you give me an example? Anything that's living. So, I'm a human. Okay. Can I affect another organism? Yes. Like, do I have effect on, let's say, cows? Yes, I have effect. So I'm biotic factor. Do plants have effect on me? Yes, they have effect on me. So they are biotic factors. Abiotic factors are the physical and chemical characteristics of the environment. Okay? Anything that is non-living and can affect organism are abiotic. There are two types, physical and chemical. Example of physical abiotic factor, we can say sunlight. Example of abiotic chemical abiotic factor, we can say salinity or pH. Okay, here it gave us example of physical and chemical abiotic factors like temperature, humidity, pH, salinity, oxygen concentration, and amount of sunlight, availability of nitrogen, and precipitation. The thing you should know is which one is chemical and which one is physical. Okay, so temperature, as you can see, it is physical. Like let's say salinity, it's chemical. pH, it's chemical. Okay, abiotic factors are not independent. Okay, in organisms change the environment and influenced by those changes. For example, the availability of nitrogen in the soil is affect how fast plants grow. The plants affect nitrogen availability by absorbing nitrogen compounds from the soil. Nitrogen, the availability of nitrogen in the soil, it depends on the ratio of the plant absorbing the nitrogen. So if it absorbs more, that means there's less nitrogen in that soil. And if there's less plant, that means there's less absorption of nitrogen, that means there's more nitrogen in the soil. That's we are not independent, okay? They depend on each other. The changing environment. Changing environments. The abiotic factors are not constant. That means they are not the same at all times and at all places. Let's take an example. Let's say here in Kurdistan, the temperature, let's say now is 10. But if you go to Antarctica, how are you going to see the temperature? It's very low. Oh, when you wake up in the morning, the temperature is low. After that, when the day go on, you'll see the temperature rise. So, the changing environment happens from time to time and from place to place. From these changes, there's reaction from organisms. Okay? So, response to a changing environment. In the book, it gives a good example of how a fish, okay, how a fish reacts to the temperature. I made a nice figure that will make it easier to understand what we are speaking about. Look at here. This is a fish, okay? Let's say this is the temperature, okay? The curve of temperature. So, the optimal range is from here to there, okay? This is called the optimal range. What does it mean, the optimal range? That means the temperature is at its best for the fish for swimming, okay? So, if the temperature goes low or if it goes higher, the performance of the fish will reduce, okay? So, here you will say the performance is reduced when the when the temperature gets lower. And here when the temperature gets lower, the performance is reduced, okay? Okay. But if we go further and further, okay, if the temperature goes more and more below, what will happen? There will be no performance, okay? There will be no performance. Here also there will be no performance. Look, here it is at its optimal range, peak performance. Here, reduced performance, okay? Here, no performance. But imagine if the temperature goes more low and low. What will happen? The fish gonna die, okay? The fish is going to be dead. Here the same, if the temperature goes higher and higher, the fish gonna be dead. So, we have zones, okay? This zone is called optimal zone. As you can see here, okay, in this curve, this is called the spread zone, okay? Reduced performance. And here, it is the optimal zone. Here at the middle, it is the optimal zone. Here, it is the spread zone. We said in the spread zone, the performance is reduced, okay? And here, we have the intolerance. Okay, intolerance. The intolerance zone, there will be no performance, okay? There will be no performance. If the temperature gets more low or gets higher, the fish cannot take it longer and it's going to be dead, and it's called after tolerance limit, okay? So we have tolerance limit. After tolerance limit, the fish cannot take it more, as in this figure, okay? As in this figure. So, if I ask you what a tolerance curve indicates, or what does it show? Let's see what a tolerance curve is. A graph of performance versus value of environmental value. So, a graph of performance, this is the performance of the fish here, and here where we say the performance is reduced, the optimal performance, okay? And the environmental value here. What's the environmental value here? It is temperature, okay? It can be anything else. It can be pH, okay? It can be salinity, okay? It can be the volatility of oxygen, or the oxygen concentration in the water. So all of these are environmental values. If I told you what the tolerance curve indicates, or what does it show, you'll tell me the performance versus the value of environmental value, such as temperature. Okay, here speaks about optimal range. As I told you in the figure, you only need to know the figure. You'll understand all of this just if you know the figure. Okay, what's tolerance limit? An organism cannot live in an area where it's exposed to conditions that fall outside the tolerance limit. As I said here, after this, it is after the tolerance limit, and the organism dies or the fish dies. And that's about the response to a changing environment or the tolerance curve. Now, acclimation. What's acclimation? Let's imagine that you go to Antarctica for a picnic for, nobody goes there, but let's say you go to Norway. Okay? You go to Norway for a month, 2 months, 3 months. What will happen? Your body gonna adapt to that cold. Okay? When you come back here, maybe it will be a normal day, like let's say the temperature is 13, like that. For you, because you have experienced a lot of cold weather, it will be normal for you. Okay? In Norway, because you lived in Norway for a lot of time and you have endured a lot of cold, it will be normal for you. But for us, maybe it will be cold. Okay? So this is called acclimation. Okay? It means that your body adapted to an environmental variable. So organisms can adjust their tolerance to abiotic factors through the process of acclimation. As I told you, you adjusted your body or you adjusted your tolerance level for the temperature. The same thing, let's say we have two fishes. A fish is born in Norway and a fish is born here. Which one will endure temperature more, like high temperature? The one here will endure higher temperature. But if I told you which one endure low temperature more, you will tell me the fish that lives in Norway. It's normal because the weather there is lower, the temperature is lower than here. Now, control of internal conditions. Look, it's an example of acclimation. How does it change after adaptation or how after adjusting the tolerance limit? So, control of internal conditions is very easy. You have studied this before. We call them cold blood animals and or cold blood organisms or animals and hot blood animals or organisms. Sorry. So, what's hot blood animal or organisms? Are the organisms that regulate the internal temperature. That means whatever the weather is, the temperature gonna be the same. Okay, but cold blood animals, the internal temperature change according to the environment. Here we call them conformers. Okay, if you see it in the name, you will see conform. Okay, conform. What does conforms mean? Yani comfortable. So he's comfortable. Anything that happens in the environment, his internal temperature will be the same as it. So conformers are organisms that do not regulate their internal conditions. They change as the external environment change. So there's no need, it's only understanding. Okay, for example, the body temperature of a desert lizard rises and falls with the temperature of the lizard's environment. That means if the temperature of the lizard goes high, the temperature of its body goes up. If the temperature goes low, its temperature goes low. So, what are regulators? Are organisms that use energy to control some of the internal conditions. If you get cold, you start to shiver. Your body is using energy to move your muscles, so the friction happens in your muscle converted into heat to regulate your body temperature. Okay, this is called regulation. These types of organisms are called regulators. Okay, are organisms that use energy to control some of the internal conditions. This guy was an example of a human that is percent Celsius and it does not change. Maybe it changes for 1 degree sometimes when you are sick or when you are very cold. But that doesn't matter because it stays at 37 and that's it. But we have the interesting example, a fish, okay, salmon. It says it is regulator and also conformer. How? Look, they spend part of their lives in salt water and part in fresh water, are conformist to the environmental temperature. So, conformist to environmental temperature, what does it mean? That's when its environment change its temperature, it's going to change its temperature. The environment is low, the temperature of the environment is low, is when the temperature is going to go, it's high, it's going to be high. So, they are conformist to the environmental temperature, but are regulators of their internal salt concentration. If their salt concentration inside their bodies change, they're going to be using energy to make a balance. Okay? So they are regulators to their internal salt concentration. They do not let the internal salt concentration change. Now, escape from unsuitable conditions. Any organism that sees the conditions for him are not suitable, he's going to try to escape from that environment. Okay? As humans, if you saw a lot of suffering, lack of food, wars, our nature will tell us just leave this place. Animals are also like that. If they see like the weather is not good, there's no food, they're gonna just escape from it. So we have two methods of escaping. The first one is dormancy or hibernation. This method is widely used by birds, brown birds to be specific. Brown birds, when the winter comes, they go into a state of reduced activity and they sleep. Okay? They sleep throughout the whole winter. When the winter is done with no lack of food, when there's no cold, they will wake up and continue their life. So dormancy during periods of unfavorable conditions, what does it do? If I told you what type of strategy, it's a long-term strategy, okay? Enter a state of reduced activity called dormancy. When does it happen? During periods of unfavorable environmental conditions. Another strategy is migration. Migration means potskirden. Strategy to move to another more favorable planet. This is called migration, as humans do. A familiar example of migration is a seasonal movement of birds. Any seasonal movement of animals is considered migration. We have seasonal movement of earth, seasonal movement of crabs. We have a lot of seasonal movement. Even the whales do migrate. There are two types of migration. There are two types of immigration. The first one is immigration. The second one is emigration. Immigration, inka, ebi, exit. So, immigration in which individual move into, imi, okay? Don't make mistakes. Imi, into, okay? Into population. Emigration in which individuals move out, exit, amen. Exit, okay? The population, thus escaping from unfavorable condition is